Guardians of the Galaxy Chapter 3, or Volume 3, I should say, is now out in theaters. It's playing out there. We just talked a second ago about, is it in the conversation now for maybe the best comic book film of all time? Maybe? Or best comic book trilogy, the best comic book Marvel trilogy of all time. We talked about that a little bit. But it just had its opening weekend, and now the official numbers are in. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has opened with $118.4 million, which makes it, we're now about 5 months into the year. We're getting close to the halfway point. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is now the number 2 biggest opening weekend of the year, only behind Mario Brothers. That's the only movie it's behind. It beat out every other thing from Creed to John Wick and everything, actually by quite a bit, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So it opened with $118.4 million. Now that makes it less of an opening than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but a significantly bigger opening than the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Fits in there pretty well. So the question online right now is $118.4 million, should that be considered a good opening weekend? Well, here's something that's interesting. Right now, there are a bunch of people online that are proclaiming that this is a disaster for Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, there are some clear... Look, to me, Disney can go fuck themselves right harshly. I don't really give a shit about Disney, but I am completely objective in a subjective way when it comes to the movie. I see a project, if I like it, I say I like it, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3. If I see a project and I don't like it, like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I say I don't like it. So I got no dog in this hunt. But I can't remember the last time I heard of a movie making $118 million. And some people online, you can clearly see have an agenda trying to say, this is a bomb, it's a flop, all this kind of stuff. And when you ask them, wait a minute, why would you say that a movie opening to $118.4 million, the second biggest opening of the year, why would you proclaim it a flop? Here's the answer. Well, it's not tracking that far ahead of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which made, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, $106 million opening weekend. So this made like $12 million more. This made like 10% more. But the argument is, well, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania made $106 million, and it didn't even make $500 million at the box office. Therefore, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we can already write it off as a flop. Now, this reminds me very much back a few months ago when Avatar 2, The Way of Water came out, because you had headlines like these. You remember these? The opening weekend of Avatar, The Way of Water came out, and you had these YouTube videos came out. Cameron loses it. This could be bad. The box office. Avatar 2, box office trending down. Box office bloodbath. And all these people like with their totally anti-Disney agendas and all this kind of stuff proclaim, oh, what happened with that movie? Just went on to be the third biggest film in the history of cinema. Now, I thought, just to give some context here, we would take a second and say, okay, with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 making $118.4 million, is that disastrous? Is this thing destined to do what Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania did and come in under $500 million? Well, let's look at a history of the MCU, at MCU films that have opened with less money than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 did. Check this out. Ant-Man 2 only opened to $75 million. That's like 50% less than what Guardians 3 just did. And that movie still went on to make $622 million. The first Doctor Strange only opened to $85 million. It's almost like more than $30 million less than Guardians 3 did, yet it still went on to make $666 million. Spider-Man Far From Home opened with almost $20 million less than Guardians of the Galaxy 3 did, made $92 million opening weekend. It made $1.13 billion at the box office. Spider-Man Homecoming made almost identical, just a little bit less than Guardians 3 did, made $117 million on its opening weekend. It went on to make $880 million. The first Guardians made $94 million on its opening weekend, significantly less than Guardians 3, still made $772 million. Winter Soldier made significantly less than Guardians 3 did at $95 million, made $714 million. And a terrible movie, Thor 2, The Dark World, Opened $85 million, more than $30 million less than Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and it still managed to make $644 million. Look, does Guardians of the Galaxy 3 making $118.4 million on opening weekend assure and guarantee that the movie is going to be a big, big hit? No. No, it doesn't. Let's be very clear. No, it doesn't. It does not assure that. It does not guarantee that. However, what that number does prove, and what the stats and the numbers do prove, is that opening to $118.4 million is in no way a time to say, well, this movie is destined to flop. And again, the only thing that other people have to draw to is like, well, look what Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania did. Yeah, but Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania had a 47% critic rating. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 has a critic rating in the 80s. The audience score of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is 95%. It has an A cinema score. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania took nearly a 70% drop from week 1 to week 2. Actually, I don't know, Chris, if you can look up that exact number for me. What was the second weekend drop? But it was around 70%. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is not going to have that big of a drop. Now, again, just to be clear, does this mean that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to make over $700 million in the box office? Not necessarily, but these numbers do prove that to say that, well, because Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania made 106 and Guardians of the Galaxy 3 only made 12 million more than it did on opening weekend.
Ticket sales were down 69%.
69%.
Oh, somewhere Taylor is high-fiving 1,000 angels.
So that nearly 70%. The assertion that, well, it's not tracking that far ahead of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is idiotic. It's idiotic. We just brought up a whole laundry list of films in Marvel Universe that have opened with less, and the big difference. Listen, opening weekend numbers are byproducts of what's going on in the context and the time that it comes out and the marketing. The overall box office has a greater reflection of the quality of the film. It's not a direct correlation. I'm not trying to suggest it is, but there's anecdotal stuff there. And people did not love Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, but people are loving Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So again, do I think this movie's going to make $1 billion? I'm not saying it will. I'm not even saying this thing will necessarily hit $800 million or anything like that. But I am saying this notion of this movie making $118.4 million and that is somehow a disaster. Again, I just had a full laundry list of Marvel movies that have opened to less and done pretty damn well. Anyway, Chris, you see this number. It's the second biggest opening of the year so far. Under what Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was, above what Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was. Bigger than some Marvel films, not as big as others. But I don't know, how do you see this opening weekend for Guardians?
I think it was very successful. And I think that this, even though it wasn't as much as the first Guardians or other Marvel films, I think the word of mouth here is what's really important. I do think that some people were, hey, maybe I should hold off on seeing this. Maybe I'll wait to see what other people think, because we have been pretty burned this year with some superhero films. So I think that this doing so well, having that great audience score, having that great critical score, I think is going to do wonders for the second week here. So I'm very, very optimistic about this. And honestly, this whole correlation, one movie did a great box office opening weekend and then did terrible. It's not apples to oranges. I mean, you can't do this. I don't understand the logic here of I've seen one movie do well one weekend and then fail miserably, so now all movies are that way. That's a weird straw man kind of argument that I don't understand why everyone's bandwagoning on.
You know, and also I want to remind people the context we're in right now. Because a lot of comic book movies, including a couple of Marvel ones, have been subpar and not up to the standard that we've come accustomed to our comic book movies being for the past 15 years, we're seeing a downward trend, right? Look, I know everybody thinks I'm beat up on Black Adam, but Black Adam, with the biggest movie star in the world, and now built up for 15 years, it had a $67 million opening weekend. That's almost half of what Guardians of the Galaxy 3 did. And yet there were people out there trumpeting that 67 million was a huge success for Black Adam, and are the same people that will proclaim that $118 million opening, nearly double, is somehow some kind of abject disaster. But again, we will see. All I know is that the audience score for this thing is 95%. The people seem to be loving it, and it's going to have much better legs. Listen, this movie, I'll tell you right now, is not going to have a 70% drop in week 2, like Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania did. It's just not. So, I don't know. Guys, question is for you. How do you see this? Do you believe that a $118.4 million opening weekend is a disaster for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, much like people proclaimed it was for Avatar 2, The Way of Water? Do you think, no, this movie's absolutely going to make $1 billion? I'm not there either. I'm somewhere in the middle. How do you see this right now? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. We want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. Summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? Manscaped is here to ensure your body is ready for the wild with their game-changing full body grooming and hygiene products. It is time to get ready for summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code Campea. Guys, you know, I've been using Manscaped products for a while now, and I love starting every day feeling cleaner, fresher, and way more comfortable. Manscaped is dedicated to helping you increase your confidence and level up your full body grooming game with the Performance Package 4.0. The kit comes with the Essential Lawnmower 4.0, waterproof cordless body trimmer, and a ton of other liquid formulations to round out your grooming routine. Inside the Performance Package, you'll also find the Manscaped Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer, because we know how painful chafing can be when you're wearing your bathing suit all day. And no one likes nose hair, so their package also comes with the Weed Whacker 2.0. You also get 2 free gifts: the Shed Travel Bag, a $39 value, and the patented high-performance reduced chafing Manscaped Boxers. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you go to manscaped.com/Campea and use the code Campea. That's 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com/Campea and use the code Campea. Trim your chesticles with the besticles.